So hi everybody. Welcome to our talk today, our talk session. So it's marketing and admissions made smarter. So HubSpot basics for education organizations. So I'm Amy Martos. I'm the senior marketing executive here at HubGem, and today we have Leah with us, who is one of our HubSpot CRMs. Consultants. I forgot the word for that there. Apologies.
I'm the CRM.
You're just a CRM. No, perfect. So one of our amazing CRM consultants here. So just before we dive in, a quick introduction to who we are. So HubGem, we are a HubSpot solutions partner that specializes in working with education organizations. So we support schools, colleges, universities, and training providers to streamline their marketing, admissions, and processes using HubSpot. So our team brings sector-specific experience and a deep understanding of the challenges education teams face. So from siloed systems to manual processes, whether it's implementing HubSpot from scratch or helping teams get more from the tools they already have, we're all about making HubSpot work smarter for education. So we're proud to lead this HubSpot user group for education today, and it's all about helping you unlock the basics. So whether you're kind of brand new to HubSpot or looking for a refresher, then you're in the right place. So I'm now going to pass you over to Leah, who's going to run through today's agenda for you.
Cool. Thank you. So I'm going to be talking about a couple of things today. Why HubSpot for education to begin with. So we'll be just having a brief sort of overview on that. An introduction to key HubSpot tools as well. So as you can imagine, there are many things that we could show today. So we tried to keep it as kind of relevant as we can for anybody that might be starting out with CRM. But various things to go through. Then we'll look at a real world use case, and lastly, some Q&A if anybody has got any questions that they might want to ask. Before I get into anything, I just want to say that I will try and get through the slides as best I can. Anybody who kind of has calls with me anyway will know that I do ramble on a little bit, so I'll try not to. And anything that you need to say in the chat, kind of go ahead, but I might not see that as we go through. I will at the end. Cool. So why HubSpot for education? There's lots of reasons why you would choose HubSpot. Firstly, it's designed to manage the entire student and family journey in one place. So by that, we mean inquiry to kind of a defined point that you might choose. Normally that goes to application. However, it could go on to enrollment. And then from there, they can go on to whatever kind of student management system that you might be using, or however else that you kind of want to manage that part. But the first initial part of that journey from inquiry onwards, HubSpot can handle. It's an all-in-one, so combines CRM, marketing, sales, dare I say it, service and automation tools as well. So all in one place. Built for personalized communication and efficient follow-up, ideal for education's relationship-based processes. So we know and understand fully, and this is a conversation that I have with many of my clients, that personalization is so important, and your relationships with your parents, with your students are at the heart of everything that you do. We understand that. It's about using HubSpot to improve that more than kind of take that away. So we'll be going into that a little bit as well. And then lastly, it can scale with you. So HubSpot, if you haven't guessed by now, is a CRM in itself, and it can scale with you as you kind of develop and grow. So as it says here, whether you're a small independent school, large university, or anything in between, it can adapt to your teams, your processes, kind of right the way through. You can bolt things on as you go. Okay, they're not all full of words, all of the slides, but I'll be going back and forth. So CRM and contact management. Just as a brief kind of intro to this, HubSpot has different areas, I like to describe it. They're called objects in HubSpot, and each of these different objects can be used to hold specific kind of groups of data. So for example, contact, which we'll be looking at largely today, is typically where we see anybody that you're going to need to communicate with. So typically that would be like parents, it could be the student themselves, if you're a university or college, for example, maybe an agent, whoever you're contacting. And then we have deals, which is what we typically use to manage the student journey. And we'll get into that a little bit further. But when we're saying contacts, it's kind of, anyone you want to communicate with. Managing your records, we'll go into this in a little bit more on the next slide. I'll show you an example, but ultimately there's 3 different areas to your records, and these bullet points kind of explain that. So your contact details and your custom properties are kind of the same. By properties in HubSpot, we mean fields, so things like first name, last name, year of entry, year group, inquiry type, course, anything that you kind of need to collect, that will be a property in your account. So on the left-hand side of your record, which we'll go into, that holds all of that information. In the middle, then you've got your activity timeline. So this would be where you track things like form submissions, email communications, calls that you might have. And then lastly, where it says here associated records, that's to do with the right-hand side, and that's where you can connect up to deals, which is what I briefly just explained there. We'll come back to segmenting, but I want to move to the next one just for the time being. I know this might be quite small for some of your screens, but hopefully you can see. So this is an example of a record in HubSpot. When I just talked about the 3 different areas, it's fairly straightforward once you get used to the system and how it works. So the left-hand side here, this is where you'd be able to see all of the individual, properties / fields, whatever you want to call them, but they're properties in HubSpot that are specific to that object. So in this case, we're talking about contacts. So any key contact information you can see on the left-hand side. In the middle is where you'd have any activities. So you can manage all of this in one place. So by activities, we mean, as you can see, emails, tasks that might be set for yourself or somebody else in your team, any form submissions that might be submitted, one-to-one emails or meetings, anything at all that contact, whether that's the parent, student, whoever it needs to be for you. That's where you'd manage all of that kind of activity with them. Lastly, on the right-hand side, we've got the associations. So I've highlighted here Bart Simpson, if you can see that. And that would be, as an example, the deal, which is typically the student. Again, we'll go into this. And you can see there that, Homer is obviously the parent of Bart, for example, here. I have put in a deal example. We're not going to go into deals too much today, but as in the records themselves. But I just wanted to show this because, as you can see, they are quite similar. So once you've learned one, you kind of learn them all. It's fairly straightforward once you get used to it, like anything. But yeah, it's user-friendly, and it means that as soon as you learn the kind of layout and get your head around those 3 main bits, that reflects on all of the different areas of HubSpot. Just want to jump back briefly to segmenting. So segmenting your prospective families, this would be whenever you want to have, as an example, a list of certain people. This could be people that you want to email for whatever reason. It could be people that you want to go on and kind of schedule follow-up meetings with, whatever that might be. You're going to need to find a way ultimately to segment these. So we use typically in HubSpot lists, as you can imagine. They are literally just lists. And active lists are the most popular form of that. So in HubSpot, you've got 2 types of lists. You've got active and static. Active lists, essentially, as it says here, they update automatically. So the example I've given is all parents who inquired in the last 30 days. So you can filter down within your lists using things like your properties. You can use those in a list and filter on whoever might meet that. So if somebody's inquired in the last 30 days, you can add that as your filter in your list. All the parents that have done that will come into that list. Then if suddenly it becomes 31 days since some of them inquired, they'll just drop off that list automatically. Same for things like year group, year of entry. Once people meet that criteria, they'll be added. And when they no longer do, or if that changes, they'll be removed. You can segment by pretty much anything that you have in the CRM, depending on what your data looks like and what properties you have. So I'll be mentioning properties a lot, they're super important, but things like geographic location, application status, parent role or contact role in general, are all key things that we see. So when I say build a list and you want to, sort of filter down on what you need to see, you would use, again, these kind of key fields that you can often find on the left-hand side here, these key properties. So managing the records is fairly straightforward. Everything's in one place. You can see a whole view of a family, for example. So it could be that we have Homer. We could also have Homer's wife as a sort of really obvious example, and children down here. Could be an agent record with lots of different kind of students that they might have brought to the school, for example. Okay, forms and landing pages. So there is various kind of things to go into here. I'm going to flip back and forth again just to show you some examples. But ultimately, forms in HubSpot are, they don't need coding. So they're quite straightforward in terms of building them. This is often something that we support with, as HubGen. We would come in and support you with this if you needed. But we would build the forms, and then you can just go ahead and you get a really simple embed code that you would pass on to your developers, your IT team, whoever can add that to your website, for example. But you don't need any kind of specific coding or anything to make these work. The great thing about forms as well is that obviously you can capture your key information, but it uses, again, your properties. So any questions that you might need to ask on your forms, they will need to be properties, and you can add those to your forms. So you can easily create them, as I'll show in a second. As an example, inquiry forms, open day forms, even application forms. Submissions automatically create and associate contact records. So you shouldn't ideally be manually entering data here. You can, have this happen automatically. So as soon as someone submits a form, if they've given you a set sort of group of information, name, student name, year entry, all of that stuff, that will come in as soon as they click submit straight away into the CRM. And you can use automation and things to then also create a kind of attached student, which in a lot of cases is a deal. When somebody submits a form, you can then do all sorts after that. So you could trigger an email to send, you could create an internal task for your team, and other workflow things that we'll look at in a second. Before going to landing pages, I'm just going to skip to the next page because I want to show you this simple inquiry form example. As you can see, this does look quite, I suppose, simple, as it says. We can't use real examples here, so these are just sort of things that I've built to show you, but you could change this if you wanted to. So in the new HubSpot form builder, you have the opportunity to add in like different like colors and things, and you can have multi-page forms and sort of do lots with the way that it looks. But in short, a form is simple to build. You just drag and drop whatever questions you might have. Those questions would be properties. And then as soon as somebody submits this form, they would then get their contact record, which you looked at just a second ago on the other slide. They would get that created for them straight away with all that information on it. You don't need to manually input anything. You just have that. I know I'm whizzing through this, so hopefully, it's making sense. But landing pages, just moving on to something slightly different, they do connect. So you can use forms and landing pages together, and we see that quite often. A landing page, for anybody who might not be aware, is essentially a standalone page that isn't usually a part of your kind of main website. It's separate and it's for a separate reason. So the example that we see quite often, if not all the time, open days, events, webinar signups, things like this, can be used for course interest forms as well. So I've had that a few times where you might want to have, a lovely landing page for a specific course, lots of, images about that course, information, all of this stuff. On your landing page, you can also add different CTAs, which are calls to action, and you can essentially then link to other things from there. So you can take them from the landing page somewhere else, whether that's a pop-up form that they must submit before they can then download a prospectus, or as it says here, scholarship guide or board-in brochure, whatever you might have. You can then track all of this in HubSpot. So someone's gone to the landing page, they might have then submitted that form on that landing page as an example. Again, jump into the next slide. Again, an example that we've created at kind of a basic level, but still, you can see here we've added a form directly onto the landing page, and this is a preview of that. And then, just join us for the open day with a bit of information. Images can be added here. You can link to things like videos as well, meeting links if you want them to be able to book a meeting directly with you. There's lots you can do with a landing page. This is a very simple stripped back version just to give you an introduction, but the most important bit would be they can link together, and it's a great way to capture information. Okay, email marketing and workflows. Again, there's so much to say about all these tools. So I'll try and keep it as brief as I can. Automated follow-up emails with personalization tokens. So personalization, I know, and again, I have this conversation all the time, is so important to many marketing and admissions teams, because that is what ultimately builds that relationship between you and the parent, the student, even the agent, if you deal with agents, whoever it is that you're kind of dealing with on a daily basis. Your personalization and the level that you have of that is what builds that relationship and that trust between you as well. So we often see that, a lot of teams might first feel a little bit unsure about handing over email sends and things like this to HubSpot when you're used to doing it yourself. But there are lots of reasons why, A, we can help you with that, and B, why you should be doing that. So you can trigger emails after an inquiry form is submitted, or any form straight away. You can trigger that, and we'll look at that in a second. You can add tokens. So again, using properties, which is so important. If you know that someone has filled in a field on a form or property on a form, so you know they've given you their name, for example, when you follow up with an email straight after that form, you can drag that field onto that or property onto that email, so that when that email sends, it pulls in the relevant information from whoever that's being sent to. So you can send the same email to 20 people, just pulling in that token once, and it will show each of those 20 people their own name, so you can address them without having to go in and edit it manually. As an example there, we've got one there. Boost engagement, builds trust, which is ultimately super important. And you can add fallback values. So if for some weird reason someone hasn't given you their name and they've just managed to submit the form without it, which, you know, we can do things to avoid, you can have a fallback. So you could say dear parent instead, as an example. We'll come back to workflows. As you can see here, this is an example of this. Again, you might need to zoom in a little bit. But it says my name here because I've previewed it as me, and then it says my deal, which would be the student name. It's so small I can't actually read that, but I'm pretty sure my name's called like John, Johnny or something random. I just called it student, but you can see it's pulled in the name. So this would be an example of a marketing email and a preview of that. You can see there's different colors. This yellow or orange bit here is a big CTA, a big button, and you can preview across mobile and desktop as well, so you can have a good look at what that will look like and test for your personalization. So you can still keep that level of personalization and still automate and save time. So yeah, that's a key reason why you should do this. You can save yourself time. If you've got all your data in different places, for example, at the moment, maybe, or you're used to, and you're using different systems, everybody's in different spreadsheets, keeping on top of that and keeping that level of personalization is going to be really difficult. So letting HubSpot take some of that off means you can then focus on other things, which are equally, or if not more important. Back to workflows. We have sessions that goes into this tool in great detail, so I will skim over kind of the basics here. Ultimately, a workflow is a form of automation. It's just you, the user, setting something up in HubSpot to tell HubSpot what it should be doing. As an example, when someone submits a form, send an email. It can be that simple, a two-step workflow. Some tips for creating a workflow would be starting simple, so make sure you've got a clear goal. Use enrollment triggers smartly. So really think about, who do you want to be in this workflow? Do they need to be in this workflow? Are you addressing the student directly, or are you addressing their contact, which may well be an agent or a parent, for example, or a guardian? Personalize everything. I mean, as much as you can and want to. There is a line probably on what you might be comfortable with to begin with, and that's fine, and we get that. But yeah, you can personalize as much as you might need to here, and always test. So you can test your workflows before they go live. You can see here, this is just a simple two-step workflow. Someone submitted this form, and let's send them an email. By trigger, that means that it will only trigger when someone does that. So if someone hasn't submitted this form, they're not going to be getting this email from this workflow. Okay, admissions pipelines. So yeah, you can use pipelines. This is one of the main reasons why we see the deal object to the deal area of HubSpot used specifically for students, or tracking kind of course attendance and things like this, depending on what you need. We see that because you can use a pipeline. So I'm going to jump straight to the next page and just show you what this looks like here. So a pipeline in HubSpot is basically just a pipeline full of different stages that we define with you. So when we're thinking about pipelines, you can be thinking about what key journeys you have and if there are any differences within those. Is there a difference in, for example, reception versus sixth form? If there is, and those students are going through different journeys, maybe you want 2 pipelines or 3 pipelines. Ultimately, though, the goal is to be able to really quickly see a card for each student within the stage that they are at. So yeah, obviously this is an example in our demo account, but Hermione Granger, application received, for example, is one of the key stages, and we can see straight away at a glance. So admissions teams can come into here and see at a glance really quickly where students are in the journey. You can drag and drop. So if Hermione was offered a place, I could drag and drop her into this stage here. I've circled the little year 7 tag there, so you can add whatever tag you might need if you want to flag certain students, and you can also add whatever information you might need to the cards here as well, so it makes it easier for you to manage those. So yeah, that's ultimately what a pipeline is, just to give you a little bit of kind of a visual on what that looks like. If I was to click into Hermione now, it would pull up that record just like we saw at the beginning with Bart, and it would look like that with the 3 sections. So this is just a snapshot of that for you to manage in a pipeline. Map your real processes. This is all things that we would help with. So think really carefully about the stages you want. There's a line between putting everything in and keeping it really key and sort of precise. Keep it clear. Use simple names so everyone in the team's understanding what's going on. You can add automation. So where we just saw the workflow that said they've submitted this form, send this email, you could instead say the deal's in the inquiry stage, send this email, for example. There's lots of things you can do with automation, and it can trigger on these stages. We can also do things like if a deal, so student is in the, let's say you've got an open day attended stage. If they're in that stage for more than 30 days, maybe we want to trigger a task to ask a member of admissions, right, can you just check in what's going on with them? Because we've noticed people are stopping at that point in the journey, for example. Filters and views, I'm not going to really touch on those too much because there's other things that we need to get through. But ultimately, again, you can add filters, which, as you might have guessed already, use properties. So you would just filter on what you want to see, year of entry, year group, things like this. If you want to see it differently, there's different things that you can do there and manage that. Okay, reporting. Lastly then, once you've got it all set up and we take you through the process of making sure that you're happy, because ultimately that's what our job is. That's what my job is as a consultant, to listen to what your processes are and understand where all of these things would sit best for you. These are all things that we typically see, but HubSpot is massively, massively adaptable and customizable. So once you've got all of that set up, you might want to start reporting. You can have dashboards where you put groups of reports together in one place, and there's lots that you can do with those. Your reports, to build reports, I won't be going into that today, but to build reports, it's essentially just filtering out people that you want to see. And again, you would use properties to do that. So properties come through everything. If someone submits a year of entry, property on a form, and you want to filter on or report on how many people have got that year of entry, you would use that exact same property that was on that form, that was on the left-hand side of the record that we looked at, that was in your list. It's the same thing everywhere, so it keeps the data clean. You can track lead sources, depending on a couple of things, but ultimately, I know marketing teams like to see things like this. So which channels are driving your conversions, for example, inquiries. Measure conversion rates, so monitor your drop-offs, where are students stopping, where are students ending their journeys with you, why is that? Let's have a look. You can customize by intake. This is a brief example, by year group or program as an example. And the big one here is that you can share with leadership or anybody else that you might need to, throughout the school, university, college, whoever. You can share your dashboards externally to people that might need to have that insight, and they can see it really nicely. Briefly then, you can see this is an example of a dashboard we have. This is specific to boarding capacity for, obviously a school. But you can kind of report and have a dashboard for lots of things, including events and courses and whatever you might need. But you can see here we've got kind of capacity reports based on kind of how many places there are for different houses and how many are taken. You could go ahead and share this and put it to share automatically every month, and these update automatically. So as the data comes in and people are added, these will all update automatically, and then ultimately that can just be shared again automatically every month or every year with whoever you might need to share with. Okay, real world example, a real world use case. We can't actually use, real people in this, but this is an example of kind of what the journey looks like and what we've done before. So ultimately a challenge, a school in this case, had siloed systems for marketing and admissions, including separate databases for everything. This is something we see all the time. Maybe you've got a paper application form, but then you've also got, an inquiry form on your website that's asking for very minimal information. Then you've got marketing kind of sending out all of their different social posts and ads from a completely separate, system, and everything's all over the place. That's where HubSpot sees the most or provides the most power, because all of those things, can ultimately, one way or another, come into the same place and be used by both teams. Solution, HubSpot was implemented here, and we unified the inquiry and admissions data using the CRM. So we use deal pipelines, custom properties, which we've looked at, different stages. And then what did that look like? So we set up an admissions pipeline with tailored stages, as you've seen in that example. We use automated workflows to send timely emails. So that's the other thing. Everybody at the minute is expecting everything in this day and age absolutely instantly, and you need to keep up with that. Ultimately, other organizations just like yours will be doing this. So, it's important to kind of keep on top of it. Implement meeting scheduling links. So that's another thing we haven't looked at today, but you can implement scheduling links so that parents and students can book in with you automatically. And we've replaced multiple forms with HubSpot's multi-step forms. So we see that quite often where, you know, education organizations might have the same form 3 times on different pages, but you can actually, in a lot of cases, kind of have that same form used across all of it. Lastly, data visibility. Real-time dashboards were created to track leads by year group, boarding status, and also their source. That's a big one, but that helped massively in this case. And then it helped identify drop-off points. So you can see. Inquiry to application conversion improved, which is great. You know, faster communications, more applications, more inquiries being followed through with. The admissions team saved hours weekly. So hours and hours have been saved with this school in particular, but with lots of schools and colleges, universities that we work with, because they don't have to manually constantly be following up. And then leadership gains a view of marketing, return of investment, but also admissions funnel health as well. So they can see exactly, or have been able to see exactly what's working and what isn't across marketing and admissions, because the people that are, you know, being influenced and interacting with your marketing efforts are the ones that you also want to come in and to manage as a parent or a student or an agent or guardian, whoever they may be. So the link is really key. I know I was through that and we are literally right at the end, but I'm just going to jump over into any questions now, and I'll just hand over to anybody that might have any questions on any of that.
A wee quick question, if you don't mind, Leah. So can you send an email to a group of people without using a workflow?
Yeah, good question. You can do this. So while workflows are really, really helpful to send out kind of automated communications without you having to think about it, you will have those one-offs where you want to send them to the same group of people. You don't want them to be just one-to-one emails. You want them to look pretty and have all different buttons and images and things in them. You can go ahead and do that, and you'd send that to a list of contacts. So that's where the list tool comes back in. You'd create your list, filter on the properties, so you'd have everyone you need, and you'd send that email to that list of people as kind of a one-off send. So yeah, you can do that.
Wonderful. But other than that, no, we're all good to go. So if we just wrap up there, then I will be sending out everybody a list of resources with your email follow-up. So Leah has already put together a fantastic series on kind of like HubSpot 101 for beginners. So I've just linked a couple of blogs there, but feel free, if you enjoy the first 2, jump on to our HubGen blog and you will find the rest in the series. An abundance of information from our amazing consultants at HubGen. So yeah, go on, have a wee look at that. I've also popped together a wee HubGen resource, which is our inbound marketing toolkit. Feel free to jump on and download that. And I've also linked a HubSpot resource there, Work Smarter and Drive Institutional Growth, which I went on and thought it would be good for education organizations for you. So again, moving on, please do subscribe to our marketing ambitions blog, which I've touched on, and keep an eye out for our kind of upcoming hug sessions. We try to run them bi-monthly, so a month on, a month off. So yep, we'll be uploading our next one soon. So please do look out for that if you're into HubSpot for Education. There we go. And then as well, we've got a list of our previous hugs. We've got them all recorded on our YouTube channel, which you can go on. Again, similar to our blogs, go on, have a look. There's also an abundance of playlists that we have from HubGen, which dive into specifics as well. Leah was touching on earlier on, like, don't fall behind. There's a lot on AI right now. That's like such a big topic. So please do jump on. We also have a HubSpot User Group on our LinkedIn channel, which we think is really useful for kind of post hugs. So if you go on, jump on, that's good for like asking questions that you maybe missed out on. If you have any questions after post hug, you go and have a wee look back, then do jump on there. And if we can't answer a question, then maybe somebody in that group can, although I do think we will be able to for you. So that's no worries. But yeah, other than that, thank you so much for joining us today. And yeah, look out for our next hugs. We would love for you to join them as well. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.